Welcome back. Today I am going to read the remainder of Spring 1935 from Out of the Dust by Karen Hess. Oh, I almost forgot to put my hat on today. Today's Easter, so instead of a full hat, I'm gonna wear the bunny ears that my kids created. Yep, you're welcome. Spring 1935. So we left off at the Black Blizzard poem, and then you read the Black Blizzard, or we read the Blankets of Black poem, and you read the Black Blizzard article. This is following that very bad dust storm in April of 1935. The visit. Mad Dog came by to see how we made out after the duster. He didn't come to court me. I didn't think he had. We visited more than an hour. The sky cleared enough to see Black Mesa. I showed him my father's pond. Mad Dog said he was going to Amarillo to sing on the radio, and if he sang good enough, they might give him a job there. You'd leave the farm? I asked. He nodded. You'd leave school? He shrugged. Mad Dog scooped a handful of dust like a boy in a sandpit. He said, I love this land, no matter what. I looked at his hands. They were scarless. Mad Dog stayed longer than he planned. He ran down the road, back to his father's farm, when he realized the time. Dust rose each place his foot fell, leaving a trace of him long after he'd gone. April 1935. Freak show. The fellow from Canada, James Kingsbury, photographer from the Toronto Star, way up there in Ontario, the man who took the first pictures of the Dion quintuplets, left his homeland and came to Joyce City, looking for some other piece of oddness, hoping to photograph the drought and the dust storms, and he did, with the help of Bill Rotterdaw and Handy Poole, who took him to the sandiest farms and showed off the boniest cattle in the country. Mr. Kingsbury's pictures of those Dion babies got him famous, but it also got them taken from their mother and father and put on display like a freak show, like a tent full of two-headed calves. Now I'm wondering what will happen to us after he finishes taking pictures of our dust. April 1935. Help from Uncle Sam. The government is lending us money to keep the farm going, money to buy seed, feed loans for our cow, for our mule, for the chickens still alive, and the hog, as well as a little bit of feed for us. My father was worried about paying back because of what Ma had said, but Mrs. Love, the lady from FERA, assured him that he didn't need to pay a single cent until the crops came in. And if the crops never came, then he wouldn't pay a thing. So my father said okay. Anything to keep going. He put the paperwork on the shelf, beside Ma's book of poetry, and the invitation from Aunt Ellis. He just keeps that invitation from her, glowering down at me from the shelf above the piano. April 1935. Let down. I was invited to graduation to play the piano. I couldn't play. It had been too long. My hands wouldn't work. I just sat on the piano bench, staring down at the keys. Everyone waited. When the silence went on so long, folks started to whisper. Arlie Wanderdale lowered his head, and Miss Freeland began to cry. I don't know. I let them down. I didn't cry. Too stubborn. I got up and walked off the stage. I thought maybe if my father ever went to Doc Rice to do something about the spots on his skin, Doc could check my hands too, tell me what to do about them. But my father isn't going to Doc Rice, and now I think we're both turning to dust. May 1935. Hope. It started out as snow. Oh, big flakes, floating, softly catching on my sweater, lacy on the edges of my sleeves. Snow covered the dust, softened the fences, soothed the parched lips of the land. And then it changed. Halfway between snow and rain, sleet glazing the earth, until at last it slipped into rain, light as mist. It was the kindest kind of rain that fell, soft and then a little heavier, helping along what had already fallen into the hard-pan earth until it rained, steady as a good friend who walks beside you, not getting in your way, staying with you through a hard time. And because the rain came so patient and slow at first, and built up strength as the earth remembered how to yield. Instead of washing off, the water slid into the dying ground, and softened its stubborn pride and eased it back toward life. And then, just when we thought it would end, after 3 such gentle days, the rain came slamming down, tons of it, soaking into the ready earth, to the primed and greedy earth, and soaking deep. It kept coming, thunder booming, lightning kicking, dancing from the heavens down to the prairie, and my father dancing with it, dancing outside in the drenching night, with the gutters racing, with the earth puddled and pleased, with my father's near-finished pond filling. When the rain stopped, my father splashed out to the barn and spent 2 days and 2 nights cleaning dust out of his tractor until he got it running again. In the dark, headlights shining, he idled toward the freshened fields, certain the grass would grow again, certain the weeds would grow again, certain the wheat would grow again too. May 1935. The rain's gift. The rain has brought back some grass, and the ranchers have put away the feed cake and sent their cattle out to graze. Joe de la Flor is singing in his saddle again. May 1935. Hope smothered. While I washed up dinner dishes in the pan, the wind came from the west, bringing dust. I just stripped all the gummed tape from the windows. Now I've got dust all over the clean dishes. I can hardly make myself get started cleaning again. Mrs. Love is taking applications for boys to do CCC work. Any boy between 18 and 28 can join. I'm too young and the wrong sex, but what I wouldn't give to be working for the CCC somewhere far from here, out of the dust. May 1935. Sunday afternoon at the Amarillo Hotel. Everybody gathered at the Joyce City Hardware and Furniture Company on Sunday to hear Mad Dog Craddock sing on WDAG from the Amarillo Hotel. They hooked up speakers, and the sweet sound of Mad Dog's voice filled the creaky aisles. Arlie Wanderdale was in Amarillo with Mad Dog, singing and playing the piano, and the Black Mesa Boys were there too. I ached for not being there with them. But there was nothing more most folks in Joyce City wanted to do than spend a half hour leaning on counters, sitting on stairs, resting in chairs, staring at the hardware and the tableware, listening to hometown boys making big-time music on the radio. They kept time in the aisles, hooting after each number, and when Mad Dog finished his last song, they sent the dust swirling, cheering and whooping, patting each other on the back, as if they'd been featured on WDAG themselves. I tried cheering for Mad Dog with everyone else, but my throat felt like a trap had snapped down on it. That Mad Dog, he didn't have a thing to worry about. He sang good, all right. He'll go as far as he wants. May 1935. Baby. Funny thing about babies. Ma died having one. The Lindberghs said goodnight to one and lost it. And somebody last Saturday decided to give one away. Reverend Bingham says that Harley Madden was sweeping the dust out of church, shining things up for Sunday service, when he swept himself up to a package on the north front steps. He knelt, studying the parcel, and called to Reverend Bingham, who came right by and opened the package up. It held a living baby. Reverend Bingham took it to Doc Rice. Doc checked it, said it was fine, only small, less than a 5-pound sack of sugar, and a little cold from spending time on the north front steps. But Mrs. Bingham and the Reverend warmed that baby with blankets and sugar water and tender talk, and the whole of Joyce City came forward with gifts. I asked my father if we could adopt it, but he said we stood about as much chance of getting that baby as the wheat stood of growing, since we couldn't give the baby anything, not even a ma. Then he looked at me, sorry as dust. And to make up for it, he pulled out a box with the rest of the clothes Ma had made for our new baby and told me to drop them by the church if I wanted. I found the dimes Ma had been saving, my earnings from the piano, inside an envelope in the box of baby Franklin's nighties. She had kept those dimes to send me to Panhandle A&M to study music. No point now. I sat at her piano a long time after I got back from the church, imagining a song for my little brother buried in Ma's arms on a knoll overlooking the banks of the Beaver, imagining a song for the Lindbergh baby stiff in the woods, imagining a song for this new baby who would not be my father's son. May 1935. Old bones. Once, dinosaurs roamed in Cimarron County. Bones showing in the green shale, ribs the size of plow blades, hip bones like crank phones, and legs running like fence rails down to a giant foot. A chill shoots up my spine, imagining a dinosaur slogging out of an Oklahoma sea, with turtles swimming around its legs. I can see it, sunning itself on the swampy banks, beyond it a forest of ferns. It's almost easy to imagine, gazing out from our house at the dust-crushed fields, easy to imagine filling in all the emptiness with green. Easy to imagine such a beast brushing an itchy rump against our barn. But all that remains of it is bone, broken and turned to stone, trapped in the hillside, this once upon a time real live dinosaur who lived and fed and roamed like a ridiculous long-necked cow and then fell down and died. I think for a moment of Joe Delafleur herding Brontosaurus instead of cattle, and I smile. I tell my father, let's go to the site and watch the men chip away with ice picks. Let's see how they plaster the bones. Please, before they ship the whole thing to Norman? I am thinking that a dinosaur is getting out of Joyce City 100 million years too late to appreciate the trip, and that I ought to get out before my own bones turn to stone. But I keep my thoughts to myself. My father thinks a while, rubbing that spot on his neck. He looks out the window, out across the field toward the knoll where Ma and the baby lie. It's best to let the dead rest, he says, and we stay home. June 1935. That's the end of spring 1935, and I'm getting the impression that the further we go into those poems, into the spring, the more I feel that Billie Jo is restless and wants to get out of there. So I would make a prediction that perhaps later in the book, as we have a little more than a third to go, I think Billie Jo is going to try to get out of the dust. So tomorrow we will see if she does that in summer of 1935.